I have always been sentimental about my things. I remember as a kid having trouble getting rid of something. I'd put a toy in the donate pile, for example, and then suddenly remember somebody gave that to me for my birthday and it was precious, and so I'd pull it back out. And I would cry when things broke or when my parents finally made me get rid of something I never played with. So on the one hand, I had that extreme. And then when I became a minimalist in college, I was just so fed up with all of the stuff that I had. And I thought I couldn't hold on to any sentimental items. So if you're watching this video, I'm guessing that you can relate. For some reason, you are sentimentally attached to items, but you also feel like you have too many and you want to be able to let go of things and declutter them. And while this is certainly still a balancing act that I'm trying to figure out in my own life, today I wanted to share with you the secrets that I've found for getting rid of sentimental items that have helped me really focus on the ones that matter the most and get rid of the things that don't. The first secret is that you need to understand that there are levels to sentimental attachment. Okay, before I start talking about these levels, I want you to go find an item that you are sentimentally attached to. If you need to pause this video and come back, go ahead and do that. Okay, I'm here with my item. Hopefully you have yours. You didn't think I was gonna skip this task, did you? But this is a vase of artificial sunflowers that my husband bought for me when we were dating. And what I want you to do is what I'm about to do with this is I want you to hold the object in your hand and I want you to think about how it makes you feel. For me, I hold these, I feel happy. I'm remembering the birthday when he shipped these to my house because we were long distance, so he couldn't be there. I can't stop smiling just looking at them and remembering how kind he is and caring. And just that wonderful feeling of being like newly in love. I wouldn't go back there if I could, but it's wonderful to remember where we've been as a couple, and I'm probably gonna cry. So anyway, it's beautiful. I love that having objects like that reminds me of our time together and the journey that we've been on together and how well we've loved each other. And generally speaking, I'm gonna try to talk through my tearing up here. We hold on to sentimental items because we have positive feelings attached to them. Not every item is like that, but many of them are. If you don't believe me, go grab another object and think about how it makes you feel. And then compare that to how the first object makes you feel. And then go grab a third object that you're sentimentally attached to. At some point, you're going to come across a few different feelings, and here's how I generally categorize them for myself. The first is what I call guilt or duty-bound items. These are sentimental items. They are related to people in your life that you care about, but they're often gifts or inherited items, and the primary emotion that comes up when you see them or touch them or interact with them at all is guilt or duty. They don't necessarily bring you a lot of joy, but you're more holding on to them out of respect for the person that gave them to you or fear that they will be angry if you declutter them. Number two is nostalgic items. And these are things that when you hold them or look at them, you have warm and fuzzy feelings toward. They remind you of a specific time period or memory in your life, but you don't often use them or interact with them. And then number three is sort of the holy grail, although you can get tripped up by them, and I'll talk about this in a minute. But these are the practical and sentimental items. So these are things that you can actually use as a regular part of your life that also really remind you of people and things that you love. Basically, they have both practical and emotional value, which makes them extra special. Okay, remember this list. We're gonna come back to it, but for now, let's move on to secret number two, which is that you need to know what's important to you. Now, everyone's tolerance and taste for sentimental items varies. Like, some of us are super nostalgic, super attached to our things, and some people, I'm gonna be honest with you, they don't really care at all. They're happy to have memories stored in their head, and they don't need things in their house to remind them. And while on the one hand, I'm kind of jealous of those people, on the other hand, I think that for a lot of us who are sentimentally attached to items, we see people like that and we go, wow, that is so heartless. And we, of course, don't want to be heartless. And so then we're sort of in this trap when we want to let go of things and declutter them, of feeling like we're heartless if we get rid of anything that we are emotionally attached to. So the only way that I have found to avoid feeling heartless when I declutter something is to be crystal clear on how I want to be able to use and interact with my stuff before I start. So I recommend that you ask yourself these questions when it comes to decluttering sentimental items. 1, how much space do I want these things taking up in my home? You want to pinpoint a good amount that won't overwhelm you. 2, where will I display or store the items that I keep? And when you're deciding this, you want to take an inventory of how much room there actually is for things in the places that you've designated. Number 3, am I keeping anything that I don't love, but that I think future generations will? In my opinion, this is usually a trap, and so these are things you should definitely look at more than once about getting rid of. Because if you don't love it, what are the chances that your kids or your nieces and nephews or your grandchildren will? Number 4, what people and parts of my life do I most fondly remember? If you need to write this down, you can. You probably just know this immediately by heart. And I would prioritize things that are associated with those times in your life rather than just picking randomly. Number 5, what memories am I afraid to lose? There's an internet quote. I think I saw it on a Tumblr post. And they said, if you want to know what someone's afraid of losing, look at what they take pictures of. Photos definitely fall into the sentimental items category, but so do other objects. And a lot of times we hold on to things because we are afraid of forgetting specific memories. And if something is really, really important to you, it's good to note that and make sure that you account for that in your decluttering. But then sometimes we have a lot of memories that we're afraid of losing, and the truth is you can't remember everything that's happened in your life. And then the last question, number 6, how do I treat people in relation to these objects, and is that how I want to treat them? Some of those questions are a little bit deep, so I encourage you to take a minute to write down your answers if you need to, because you're going to need those later in this video. But once you have your answers down, either in your head or on paper, let's move on to the 3rd secret, which is that you are not letting anyone down. Another way of putting this is that you should get rid of your guilt or duty-bound items first. And you don't have to get rid of all of them, but I think that you should aim for getting rid of 90% of the things that primarily make you feel guilt or shame when you look at them. And here's why. If someone that you love or loved gave you something and you neither use it nor like it, but you feel pressured to keep it, you are not letting them down. If someone is truly giving you something as a gift out of generosity, then they are giving it to you because they hope that you will use it and enjoy it. If that is not happening, you are free to get rid of it. It is not a loving thing to saddle people with things that they cannot use and that are just taking up space in their house. And once you give someone something, you relinquish control over what happens to that item. Now, there are exceptions, right? Like I've had people give me things and say, okay, if you don't want this anymore, give it back to me because I'm too attached to it. But unless they have specifically done that, and then you can just give it back to them, you are free to do what you want with it. And I know that this is hard. Like sometimes the people who gave us these things have passed. Sometimes we're afraid that they're going to come over and notice that we aren't using the thing. But trust me, getting rid of these guilt or duty-bound items is much easier than some of the other items we're going to talk about getting rid of later in this video. And quite frankly, if you have a lot of these items, this is really what you should be focusing on first, because the whole point of having a home, of having things in that home, is that you can have a relaxed, enjoyable space to live in. And if other people's stuff that you don't like and that you didn't pick is crowding that up, it is keeping you from living the life that you want to live. So do me a favor and really try getting rid of some of these items that you just feel guilty for getting rid of. And remind yourself that you are not letting the person down who gave them to you. If the person is still with us, you can offer to give it back if you think that that would pose too much awkwardness. Just go ahead and donate it, throw it away respectfully. Thank that person in your mind for the gift that they thought they were giving you and move on with your life. Secret number 4 is that you can keep memories without keeping stuff. I feel like we often hold on to nostalgic items in particular because we want to remember certain things. But how much time do you actually spend interacting with those items and thinking over old times? If you're watching this video, I'm guessing that the answer is not a lot. And that's fair. I feel like those items that we hold on to for nostalgia are a bit of like a textbook of our lives, right? If you pull out an old textbook for most general subjects, I'm not talking about specialties here, you may flip through it and come across some things that you didn't remember learning in school. But for the most part, you're going to remember the main points, the relevant points for your life now. And it's not usually worth holding on to a textbook from like high school or even college, general subjects, because you remember what you need to know and then you move on with your life. And that brings me to the point that I don't want you to miss about these nostalgic items is that while it can be lovely to think over old times and get the reminders of those memories from your items, looking at them can never fully replace actually being there, right? Like it can't replace what it was like to be in that moment, and it can't replace what it's like to be in the moment now. If you spend, for example, an entire vacation trying to find the perfect souvenir, that's kind of a bummer, right? Because then you get to the end of your trip and you have a great souvenir to remember the trip by, but what are you actually remembering? You're remembering looking for the souvenir, right? I don't like to do that with my vacations. I'd rather have an imperfect souvenir or no souvenir at all, just my memories in my head, but be able to be fully present. And I want that with my life too. So if you have too many nostalgic, sentimental items crowding it up, keeping you from being able to be present and really enjoy making new memories in the present, I recommend that you weed some things out. And you're just going to want to do this according to the questions that we talked about earlier, just the most important things on that list, or things that are associated with people or memories that are like some of the happiest times in your life. I would emphasize keeping a few nostalgic items from those things and then trying to get rid of as much as you can that doesn't fall in those categories. And if there are some things that you are attached to, but it doesn't really make sense for you to hold on to based on your current space or whatever, there are a few things that you can do to still hold on to the memories without holding on to that thing. First of all, I recommend taking a picture of the item. It's easy, it's quick. You can do a digital backup, and so you never lose that photo and it doesn't take up a lot of space. It can be in the cloud. And I feel like Google Photos, and I'm sure Apple Photos does this too, I don't have Apple, has a way for you to caption the photo too, so you can write notes about what the item is, why it's important to you, the memories associated with it. And that is a really cool way to be able to hold on to that memory and look through it whenever you want, but not necessarily have to hold on to the item and have it taking up space in your home. You can also write down the memories and just forget the object altogether. If you are into scrapbooking or art, that may be a great way to inspire you to incorporate a picture of the item into a scrapbook or draw a picture of it and talk about what it means. If you are not a writer or an artist, you can just record a video or like an audio file on your phone talking about the item and what it means to you so that you can remember that memory. There are a lot of ways to store a memory that you are afraid of losing while letting an object go. And if it's something really big, like maybe a piece of furniture or something that does not fit your decor or that you don't really like the look of, but that you are very attached to, I feel like that is the perfect way to honor that object and its place in your life and then to give it away. And then we are on to our fifth and final secret, which is that people are more important than things. As I mentioned when we talked about the levels of sentimental items, we've talked about how to deal with guilt-ridden items, we've talked about how to deal with nostalgic items. Now we are going to talk about how to deal with those practical and sentimental items. And the only problem I really see with holding on to things that you have sentimental attachment to that are also useful is this. Sometimes we protect these items at the expense of treating other people poorly. Now, I have no problem with setting up boundaries around the use of these items. I have no problem with, putting those things away when, kids come over or whatever that don't know your rules and don't know how important it is to you. I have no problem with any of that. But if you are so attached to something that if it were to break, your heart would break and it would make you act in a way toward other people that you don't want to act, I just have one question for you when you're thinking about whether or not to keep the item. Is it really worth it? Let's just take an imaginary example. And I'm gonna pick dishes because dishes are really, really easy to break. But let's pretend you have like a very special set of dishes. Maybe they belonged to your grandma. And you have them in your home and you use them when you have people over. If someone breaks one of those dishes on accident, how are you going to respond? It is totally valid to be upset. That is something that was important to you and now it is broken. But do you take it out on the other person? Or are you still able to respond graciously and realize that these things happen? In general, I'm a fan of using sentimental items as much as you can. I feel like it makes your life richer. I feel like it gives meaning to your everyday. But something that you have to understand when you use things is that oftentimes they can be worn out, they can be broken, and that is what things are for. They are made to be used. If you cannot face that, I recommend that instead of using them, you display them somewhere safe. And if you don't have any place safe to display them and you really cannot bear the thought of them being broken or worn out or used up, I would question very seriously if I or you, whoever we're talking about in this situation, is the right person to have that item. The beginning of the secret that people are more important than things is a huge philosophy in my life. And if an item makes me want to contradict that philosophy, I either get rid of it or I find a way to put boundaries around it so that I know that I can still treat people as more important than that thing. And it's a very nice way to live. It sets me free from being too tied sentimentally to items that I become a person that I don't want to be. And that freedom, whether it's from things that are practically useful, whether it's from too many nostalgic things, or whether it's from things that you've just been holding on to because you feel like you should, that freedom and joy is what I want for you when you let go of some of your sentimental items. It is so important to honor the past, to honor people and things that you have loved. But it's also really important to have room for who you are now, to have space for you to breathe and be present in the moment. And so I hope that this video has helped you do a little bit of that. And before we go, I should say this. If you are new to decluttering, I don't actually recommend starting with sentimental items because they are some of the hardest things to declutter. I think it's much easier to start with things that you are not super sentimentally attached to. So if you need some suggestions for things you can get rid of much more easily, I have this video where I talk about 27 things you can just get rid of today. And I have a lot of other videos on my channel about gentle decluttering as well. So thank you so much for watching. I will see you in the next video.